Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Settle for More podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Wright, and I have designed this space for you. Yeah, you, the woman who is ready to walk out on her fears, step into her dreams, and own her power by shifting her mindset from feeling not enough to taking action and becoming more than enough whilst settling for more. So happy new year. It's been such a long time since we've connected. I think we connected over 2 weeks ago, and I keep saying, I need to record a podcast. I need to share what my intentions for this year is. I need to share what my power word is. I need to share the things that I'm planning on doing. Like, there's so much to share. And so I'm going to kick off with letting you know what my word or my phrase is for 2021. So this year, I have decided that I wanted to be more intentional with how I'm showing up. So that is intentional with the relationship I have with my body. That is being intentional at work. That is being intentional with my friendships, partnerships, and relationships. And that is just being intentional in terms of how I show up. And so I became intrigued or fascinated with intentional living. John Maxwell has a book called Intentional Living, and I think I got that book as a gift, or somebody purchased that book for me, or I purchased it myself. Either way, it's a book that I have. It speaks about leadership and in being intentional as a leader. And I believe that we are all self-leaders, so we may not be leading people, but we're all leading ourselves. And what John was saying is that every person wants his or her life to matter. So essentially, we all are looking to live a life that matters. And you probably have a longing to be significant, to make a contribution, to do something noble, to do something that is purposeful. But you doubt that these things are within your reach. So there's that there's that fear that we can't do it, that we're not enough, we're not equipped to do these things. And so as a result, it prevents us from reaching for more. And do you think that if you were to have a positive impact on the world, that you need to be of a certain age? You probably think, I need to have lots of money, or I need to be famous, or I need to be associated with individuals who are famous. And the good news is, so if that's your thought and that's the way you're thinking, the good news is that none of these things are necessary for you to achieve significance or create a lasting legacy. And if we just sit with that for a moment, that sometimes based on what the society has prescribed and how we were socialized and our beliefs that we have created, we're thinking that if I were to live a life that truly mattered, I would need to have all this money. I would need to have all this time in the world. I would need to be able to know people who know people who know people who can get me hooked up or get me connected. But the truth is that none of these things are necessary for you to be able to achieve that significance or to make an impact in the world. And so what we really want to understand is that the key to life is being more intentional. If you possess the desire to make a difference and you place high value on people and you're willing to team up with others, significance is in your reach, which is giving you the opportunity to live an intentional life. So intentional living can be considered to be the most important goal that one could have for themselves. I think it's one of those goals that we could call the keystone goals, because what happens is that when that is achieved, then you're also able to achieve other things as well. And so I am choosing this book this year because I recognize that sometimes we're living by default and not by design. Sometimes we are not clear on what we want from certain things. We tend to be busy doing a lot of things, and sometimes these things will yield no impact at all. yet we do them anyways. And so I wanted to be intentional about the way that I'm showing up. I wanted to be intentional in my friendships. I wanted to be intentional when I'm parenting. I just wanted to make sure that I am focused, I am purposeful in executing any goal, project, or task that I have set out for this year. And so what does it mean to live intentionally? Nicole, you've decided that, okay, that's your word. What does it mean? So living an intentional life is the opposite of living a life by chance. Living an intentional life is also the ability to live a life where you're fully aware of what's happening, who you are, where you're heading, where you want to go, what your potential obstacles could be, etc. When you live intentionally, you know what your long-term goals are. You know why you choose the food you do for the last meal you had, for example. And if you can't answer these questions without giving it some thought, then you are not living in an intentional way. So if I were to say to you, what are your long-term goals? People tend to know what they want, or, in 5 or 10 years from now. And if I were to say to you, hey, that was a great breakfast choice you made. Is there a reason that you made that choice? And if you're like, no, I just made it, or no, I don't know what my goals are, could it be an indication that you are not living with intention, right? And that it is time for you to be a little bit more purposeful, even with something as simple as choosing what goes into your body. So living an intentional life is all about choices. Intentional living requires that we make certain decisions, and you can't have any intention without having to make a decision first. So it doesn't happen by default that you must choose a different direction for your life if you decide that you want to be intentional, by asking yourself, in living this way, what am I hoping to achieve? What do I want to own? What kind of life do I want to live? And then make some choices and select or choose your actions each day in accordance with the objectives. So a lot of us will want these things, but we haven't taken the time to really ask ourselves those questions, right? So what do you truly want to accomplish? What do you truly want to own? And essentially, what kind of life are you desiring to live? Another benefit from living intentionally is the ability to make solid, grounded decisions, right? But in order for you to do that, you must be willing to evaluate your behavior. So the first thing we talked about choices. It requires making a decision. Now we're looking at evaluate your behavior. So to live an intentional life, you must evaluate and understand who you are at your core. Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you succeed at the things that you succeed at? And why do you fail at the things that you fail at? So you should be able to evaluate your behavior, how you're approaching certain things, how you're approaching your goals. Do you have your goals set? Do you know why all that is important to you? So being able to recognize through evaluation means that you're on the right path. Before taking any action, you want to ask yourself, what is my intention? So if I'm heading downstairs towards the refrigerator to satisfy my hunger or to ease my anxiety or to cure boredom, which is what I tend to do these days, or to fuel my body in a healthy manner, I should be willing to ask myself, what is my intention? When I take certain action, what is my intention of aimlessly just taking something out of the refrigerator? Or what is my action for intentionally going downstairs and grabbing a bottle of water? So every action that you complete, you must be willing to acknowledge what the intention could be. Then we want to evaluate all of the chosen behavior, we also want to take a look at the ones that we avoided as well. And we want to now take from that, it's like a mini assessment, do the things that makes us tick. So when you're evaluating the behaviors, the chosen one and the ones that you avoided, right, you tend to want to do more of the chosen one because they light you up, they spark your flame, as opposed to the ones that don't do a lot for you. Those would be the ones that you want to avoid if you're living in an intentional way. You also want to be really, really, really aware of your values and beliefs. So knowing your values and belief, because when you do take the time to do your values assessment, when you know what your belief system is, when you know what you stand for, you can make it easier to live intentionally. You might have the intention to live life based on contribution, honesty, or love. And that is because you've taken the time to identify your values and your beliefs, so you know what's important to you. You believe that everybody should be able to reach their goals based on the guidance that you're providing them. So if you're positioning yourself now as an expert, right, you believe that everyone should be able to read and everyone should be able to be a guide in their own lives. Giving your values and beliefs priority really makes many of our formerly challenging situations obvious. So we're now thinking, that didn't work out so right. I wasn't in operation with my values. So that's why understanding your values and tying that into the ability to live intentionally is really important. Next, we want to take a look at when do we experience stress? If you're not operating with intention, could it be relatively stressful for you? Right? So we want to look at if you are living by design and you feel as though you're being pulled in every direction and you're not being pulled in the right direction. Living with intention means that you are being called to serve higher. There is a calling on your life to do something a little bit different. Living with intention creates that sense and self of awareness. And so the next thing you want to be able to do is to choose your habits. Because most of your habits seems to have developed on their own. And it is important to evaluate and to choose your habits. Habits actually can mask your intention by removing the thought process from the equation. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to move, and we want to be able to really take the time to decide what's serving me and what's not serving me. So if you recognize that you have habits that were just developed on their own, if those habits are not good habits, is this an opportunity to create a plan to eliminate these habits from your life? One of the things that I preach and practice every single day is knowing my intentions for the day. And I tend to call that, what am I available for today? So being crystal clear about what you're available for and what you want out of today and how you're going to move about today and how do you see purpose in today is really, really important. And so you may have a broad intention of a financial freedom, but narrowing the intention down could be, I want to be financially free, but right now I want to be able to be mortgage free. Because that's no longer leaving it up to choice. It's really taking accountability. From there, you may have the intention of saving more money so you can pay down your debts faster and faster. Your intention for today might be to, let's say, avoid spending that isn't absolutely necessary. And so once you have that intention in mind, then what would you do to make it happen is another component that's really important. Be proactive. And what that means is to really not wait for something to happen and then you react. So something as simple as if you know you're leasing a home or renting a home and that your lease ends in 3 months, you should start looking for a new place, like time ahead. The alternative is to wait until you're out of time and then you have a few options and you really can't be living intentionally then. So you're forced in that moment to roll the dice and to take whatever you can find in a short time. This is the opposite of intentional living. Intentional living would then means that you know exactly what you want. You have decided that exactly where you want your new home to be and all the features that comes with this home, so that you don't feel like you're just living and you're just living by default and not by design. So we want to be really intentional about that. Now, the key to an intentional living is mindfulness in all of its parts, right? Because we want to be aware. Be mindful of your intentions. Be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of your actions and definitely of the goals that you've set up for yourself. If you are truly mindful, so what this is looking like is if you're truly aligned, if you've truly shared, if there is some resonance there with you. And Kelly, I'm seeing. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Right. So if you're really mindful about what you're doing, it makes it easier for you to live with an intentional life. So just be aware of your thoughts. Just be aware of your actions, because an intentional life creates the thought that you will never ever be able to get if you were not living intentionally. And those could be just thoughts and ideas about things that you can start doing. So if you make a conscious decision and question your thoughts and actions, seek to be more aware of your decisions. You want to ensure that you're aware of the behaviors that you're choosing. Make sure that the behaviors are in alignment with the decision. You want to also take a look at the habit, because habit can be the bane of intentional living unless you choose your habits intentionally. Be mindful and take responsibility for your results, and you will find more of what pleases you. And so that's just my tip on intentional living. When I think about it for myself, I think about being driven. I think about being purposeful. I think about designing and creating the life that I want. I think about every single action that I execute should have a reason. There should be a reason why I'm executing on this goal in this particular manner. If not, then I'm not living intentionally. And so this brings our session to an end. I hope you've learned, and I hope that going out into the world, you will then decide, how can I show up living an intentional life? And as you do that, remember that you don't need validation. You don't need confirmation. You don't need permission or definition, because just as you are in this moment, you alone, you simply are just more than enough. Go out into the world and be intentional. And in doing that, you are choosing to settle for more. We'll talk soon.